those tears that you cried, were they 2 years worth of tears?
It was 3 years that I carried that.
Describe that weight. You said you carried it. Describe it.
So imagine like a 50 kilo or 100 kilo ball. I just felt like I was dragging that throughout them 3 years. I lost myself in that process of supporting the other person. And I only realized that after we separated. And for me, it was like a point of recognizing and looking at myself in the mirror and thinking, who even is Prashul? I don't even know who I am anymore. All the events I had unfolded and constantly pouring into the other person's cup, you start to lose yourself, because if you can't pour into your own cup, who are you? You lose your identity.
Imagine carrying the weight of expectations, silent struggles, and the pressure to always have it together. The Dad Project is a space for open, honest conversations about men's mental health. Raw, real, and long overdue. In Season 2, we go deeper, sharing powerful stories and fresh perspectives from those who've lived it and those who help others through it. Filmed at the Old Court in Windsor, this season is about breaking stigmas, redefining strength, and starting conversations that matter. I'm your host, Naroop Juti. Let's talk.
So 2 months ago, I got a message on my Instagram from the Indian life coach saying, hey man, I love what you're doing with this. I'd love to be able to chat to you about the Dad Project. And that man is now sitting here in front of me.
Yep.
Welcome, man. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. In the 2 months that I've known you, I'm really grateful to say that you've become a friend.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of deep conversations. We aligned in so many ways. I remember the first conversation me and you had on the phone. At the end, you said, I know we'll be able to do stuff together. We're aligned. Yeah. And I felt exactly the same thing, man. And I love what you're trying to do and what you are doing. But before we go into all the amazing things that makes Prashul, I would love to know all the things that made you as a child and your journey to becoming the man I see before me now.
Yeah. Well, first off, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on here. That's a true honor, because obviously, like you said, a lot of things that you were doing and that I'm doing like totally align. And I feel like the synergy between us when we had that first conversation was just like through the roof. So I'm so grateful to like be chatting to you and to be here, and future collaboration as well. So, but yeah, I mean, talking about childhood, like I feel like for me, it wasn't really a fairly normal childhood. Like, you know, the typical child that most kids have. Obviously being an Asian background, like I'm Hindu, you know, growing up was very much like a lot of, very much family orientated. But in my household, my grandmaster lived with us. So it was a constant revolving door. I don't know if you can resonate with that, but I'm sure a lot of other Asians can. So because of that one factor, like the doors were just constantly moving all the time, like people coming in, going, visiting. So my childhood was very much, I mean, it was good. Like my parents did an amazing job. Like, you know, shout out to them. It's like with all due respect to them, like they did a great job in raising me and my sister. Obviously the priorities were different for them back then, because it was very much like community, building community, helping each other out. So the focus was always like people visiting or doing something, right? But I guess for me, like the challenges really started when I went to secondary school. So talking about primary school first, actually. So primary school was great the first few years. We moved to a different location because my parents saw better prospects for me and my sister going, you know, being in a different environment, different area, which was great. You know, they're really excited for this move. I then had to finish my final 2 years at primary school at a different one, which was still good. I made some good friends. And you know, when you kind of join later on in the term and stuff, like it's a bit difficult, but I was fine. But the challenges for me really started when I went to secondary school. So my parents fought really hard for me to go to the school that we literally lived opposite. But because we were on the wrong side of the street, it wasn't in my catchment area. So they had to fight really hard for me to go there. And I'm kind of glad they did, but I did face like challenges. So majority of secondary school, I was bullied. And that was not fun at all. Like,
Bullied for what?
Just bullied. Well, one, I was a really small child, a really small kid, skinny. I used to have like shaved head. My forehead used to come really low. So like my hair, even though I've got a 5 head now, I didn't have like that much of a forehead. So my hair used to come like really low to about here. So I used to get bullied for that as well, which wasn't great.
How did you cope with that?
I think it was really difficult. It was challenging because I would obviously still have to go to school. The friend circle that I had were the ones that were like really toxic. And, you know, one day you go into school and it's like, they'll be your friend. And the next day they won't. They'll be like, oh, don't sit near us. And for me, I think it still took a few years. But the turning point for me was when my mum started to acknowledge that I wasn't happy. And I used to come home and cry. I used to run up to my bedroom and just cry. And there was this one day that I came in the house and I remember it. And I think I ran straight up to my bedroom. My mum saw. She came up and she was like, what's going on? And I remember saying to her, like, I just want to kill myself. I don't want to be here anymore. And like, that's because of how I was made to feel at school. I just felt like I wasn't worthy enough of friends or good enough to be around certain people.
How old were you then?
Well, this was secondary school. So I was probably like 14 at the time. So, you know.
So you weren't super young. You're like a teenager.
Teenagers, yeah.
So for a teenager to say,
yeah,
I'm going to kill myself, are you maybe glossing over some of the deep emotions? Because that's a statement.
yeah.
That's a big statement to make.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a big statement to make. And I think for me, it's like how I was made to feel by the people who were bullying me, like feeling isolated, feeling lonely. Like these were big emotions that were coming up for me at the time. And a huge part for me was, and I guess this is where I struggle, was that when I was at the primary school that I moved to do my final 2 years, I made some great friends there. They all moved to the school I was meant to go to. But for me, I was obviously put into the school that was opposite the road for us. So I think for me, there was a big part where I was just like, there was this huge separation from all the friends that I knew to then coming into secondary school and making new friends. And obviously you go through puberty and all that kind of stuff. So you're dealing with a, wealth of emotions at that point in time, right? So, but yeah, that was that one incident where I mentioned about my mum kind of coming and checking on me. That was probably the turning point where it was like, okay, I need to speak to people at your school, like speak to your teachers and stuff, try to get you the help and support that you need. And one thing I'm truly grateful for is so it's year 7, year 8, and then by year 9 is when all of this kind of kicked off. So I dealt with just over 2 years of having that constant cycle of bullying and not really speaking up about it. But year 9 is when it kind of was made more aware of to everyone in school. So like teachers knew about it, students knew about it, and I made one really good friend. And when you're back at school, you always have that challenge of like, who's the strongest kid in the school, and them kind of like challenges, right? So one of the kids I actually made friends with, he was like, he was known as one of the strong kids. So from the point of hanging around with him, no one really bothered me too much. I still used to get issues now and then if I was walking through the corridors and stuff by myself, by a select few people. But for the majority of it, I was actually better off. So I'm super grateful for going through that experience as well. So like, as I've gotten older, like I hate bullies. I don't like it. I'm very much like the type of person now who I'll stand up for other people. If I see someone having a tough time with someone, I will go in and step in and say, look, just step away. Like this isn't the time or the place or whatever needs to be done. So
that's interesting. It's good that you were able to get through it with the help of a friend.
Yeah.
I remember when I was bullied at school, my cousin and my brother were 2 years ahead of me. And there was an instance where I was getting teased and I told my cousin, actually, I think I must have told both of them, but my cousin came to my class and spoke to the guy that was bullying me.
Wow.
Didn't threaten him, but said, look, you're making him upset. Stop.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't a fight. It wasn't like, you better stop or I'm going to beat you up. It was just he intervened and that bullying, that guy stopped it from that point on. He didn't like that I had said and told my brother and my cousin about what happened, but it stopped. And I think a lot of times children are fearful. Oh, don't tell us teachers, because how are they going to be perceived by the other classmates? You're snitch.
You'll snitch. Yeah, I was just about to say that. Yeah,
You
that was a
know?
huge thing for me. Like, I just didn't want to snitch. So for 2 years, I didn't snitch, right? And it's only until like year 9, it's when everything kind of came out about what I was truly kind of dealing with.
Nice. And do you think you've moved past that? You
Yeah.
put all that stuff to bed now?
Yeah, definitely. I think it took me a little while, but once I started making some better friends, and I think for me the transition was like moving from secondary to college. Once I moved to college, I made some great friends, like people who actually uplifted me and wanted to see me do good just as much as I wanted to see them do good as well. So that for me was a good turning point. But I guess like when you move from like secondary school to like, you know, college, and moving from there to like uni, like you kind of become a bit more mature, right? You start hanging around a certain group of people. So I guess, yeah, that was a good turning point for me, was moving to college. I genuinely enjoyed college. Hated school, but enjoyed college.
So college years were all good. You really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
What was your first job? Because this is interesting, because I've only ever spoken to you with you being a life coach.
Yeah.
And as a friend, I don't even know what you did for work.
Yeah, no, so like I actually had a job at 16. So I started working at 16 years old. I used to work at Staples.
Right.
So my dad was always one to kind of push me, like, and I'm super grateful he did, man. So he was always like, with me and my sister, like always encouraging us, like, right, you're 16 now, like, and the first thing was like, go do paper rounds. I'm not going to do that. That's like beneath me, right? So I was just like, I don't really want to do that. Getting up in the morning, going out in the cold, like it wasn't my kind of cup of tea. So then I started looking at jobs online, going to the job center actually. And I came across Staples had an opening for just, being a salesperson. So working on shop floor, and I actually applied for that and I managed to get it. So I'm super grateful for that, because that meant that was the first time imagine at 16 years old, I had an income, right? It wasn't much. I was getting paid like £5 something an hour, or less than that probably at the start, probably like £4 something. It was like bare minimum wage. But that really helped me grow. And I think that's probably what helped with the bullying stuff as well, because it gave me something else to invest my energy into and focus on. I wasn't focusing on the negative stuff. It was like, how can I grow through this process, right? So I still remember my first day, I was so nervous. I didn't want to speak to any customers, even just going up to someone and saying, hi there, sir, or hi there, madam, can I help you? Like, is there anything you're searching for? That for me was just so overwhelming, like so much anxiety around that as a 16-year-old. It felt like there's all this pressure around it. But when I, as the days and the weekends progressed and the more I worked, it became easier. And like, if you told me like back at 16, I'd be doing this, what I'm doing now, like chatting to so many people and connecting and stuff, I would never have believed you, considering like where my confidence level was back then to where I am now. Total like chalk and cheese.
What did 16-year-old Prashul want to do?
So for a long time, I wanted to become an archaeologist.
Okay.
So for me, it was like, I really enjoyed like mythologies and stuff like that, like Greek mythology especially, right? So I love digging into history. And I think for me, there was that learning aspect there, like what has happened before we came. So for quite a while, I wanted to do that. But there was a point where leaving school and then kind of like going to college and stuff, like I had to really start thinking about what I truly wanted to do. And hats off to my parents, they didn't pressure me on anything. Like, typically you get told to become like a dentist, a doctor, accountant, or something like that, right? Like the typical jobs, right? So for me, it was like, what are you passionate about? What do you want to do? And for me, I had huge inspiration from one of my cousins. He was in IT and like doing web stuff. So I saw that as a path of like, actually, I enjoy being creative. So even throughout school as well, I was really good with graphic design. I used to draw anime and stuff like that as well. So for me, I saw myself being talented and creative. Thought, how can I like move that into like the digital aspect of it? So one of my cousins used to do a lot of Flash. Do you remember Flash? He used to do a lot of Flash design and like building websites on Flash. And he showed me one day, and I remember it because I went to his house and he was in Bradford. So it was the old school Mac, right? The one with a really big back.
Yep.
And he showed me some really cool stuff on Flash, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. I want to do something like that. So when it came to choosing what I was going to do at college, I spoke to him about, what course I should do. So I actually did like multimedia design, and that's kind of where that kind of led me into like years of doing web design and development as my actual career. But back then, that was what appealed to me. It was a form of expression, form of me being creative. And that's what truly resonated with me to kind of progress my career to the next levels in that job field.
And so from working in web design, something happened
Yeah.
in your life that dramatically changed your path. What was that?
For me, it was going through my divorce. So going back to 16 years old is when I met my ex-wife. So we were childhood sweethearts. We dated for so long. So we dated up until we were roughly around 25, and 10 years of dating. And then we did the normal thing. We followed what society taught us, like go school, go college, go uni. I always felt like I was the lucky one. I know you've got a similar background as well, so you could probably resonate with this, but I thought I had it all figured out. I didn't have to stress about finding a partner.
Why was that important to have it all figured out?
Because for me, seeing how my parents and other people around me were, it was like the ultimate goal always felt like it was once you're married, that should be it. Get a house, have kids, right? So for me, it was like, I've known my partner for so long. What's next? Let's get married. And because my sister was getting married as well, we kind of started progressing things. So we got married in 2015. That marriage lasted about 3 years. And for me personally, there was a breakdown in trust, and it was hard for me to kind of gain that back. And, from where I'm, I can only speak for myself on here with this topic as well. So I tried everything I could to try and make that marriage work.
Explain.
So we did like marriage counseling, made sure that we were spending more time and stuff together, and a couple of other things which I don't really want to kind of go into, but we did do it. We tried a lot of things to try and make that relationship work, even to the point of buying our own house. Because I thought, another challenge we had as well was that we were living at my parents' house, because of like my grandma's situation as well. We kind of settled there for 2 years, and then the final year 2017, we moved out and bought our own property. And I truly felt hope, because I thought, okay, well, if we move out, we can have our own space. We can really work at this and make it successful. We've been together for so long. Don't want to throw this down the drain. But I guess moving out and having our own space, there was a lot more cracks that appeared in the relationship. And then you start to recognize that actually this is probably not going to work. So when a whole year of being in this property and trying to make our relationship work, but it came to, and I remember the day vividly because it was February 2018, 14th of February 2018, Valentine's Day, that we both decided to part ways. It was like, we are no longer aligning. We no longer want the same things in life. I feel a certain way, you feel a certain way. So we both decided that we would go our separate ways. She went home to her parents and I went home to my parents. And I was talking about this yesterday, actually, on another chat with another person. And I still remember that day vividly because I remember getting home to my mum and dad's house and it was like 9 p.m. or something in the evening. And obviously I'm crying driving home because now it's become a reality. We have actually separated. And I remember getting out of the car, knocking on my parents' house. And because it was dark, my dad came and opened the door. And initially he was all smiley face, like happy to see me, but also wondering what was I doing there? And as he opened up the door and he could see my face properly, he could see I was crying. And instantly his energy changed and he was like, "What's wrong, Presh? What's going on?" And I couldn't talk. I literally couldn't even get the words out. And for me, it took me to step inside the house and he was still asking me, he's still asking the question, what's wrong? And I just remember this moment where I just grabbed him and I hugged him. And my dad's bigger than I am. So for me, it was like having that comfort and safety. Like I just buried my head into his chest and I just hugged him. And I remember crying, like as if I'd, when you lose someone, like, with death and stuff, it was literally like that kind of cry. It was like I was wailing because it was like so intense for me of feeling that emotion, but also feeling the comfort of my dad hugging me. And he continued to ask me questions. I was lucky my aunt was there. And my aunt said to him, "Stop asking him questions, just hug him. He just needs that right now." I stood there for a few minutes and we just hugged and cried it out. And then I opened up about what happened and I expressed to them, look, this is why. They didn't know a lot of things. and the challenges I was facing. They knew some of them, but they didn't know a lot of the other challenges and the things I had to go through. So that's when I told them all the events I had unfolded, and they realized and understood why me and my ex-wife then decided to separate, and recognizing it was going to be something good for me, even though it's going to be a challenging phase in my life, recognizing that this was a better option for me to walk away and start a new life for myself.
Thank you for sharing that story, man. I'm just visualizing a thought of you hugging your dad. And like you said, burying your head into his chest and crying, which in and of itself is probably a picture that most people won't see.
Yeah.
A son crying to his father, and the father being the one to support the man at that moment. Those tears that you cried, were they 2 years worth of tears that you were crying, that you had just held back and finally realized that you could release?
Yeah. 3 years. It was 3 years that I carried that, because there was so much, like I said, there was so much that had happened, and I was keeping it all to myself majority of it to myself, because I didn't want my parents to stress.
Describe that weight. You said you carried it. Describe it.
Yeah. I mean, it felt like it was holding, like when you think about a ball and a shackle, like, and you're dragging it. So imagine like a 50 kilo or 100 kilo ball. I just felt like I was dragging that throughout them 3 years, and it kept getting heavier. So it must have started off with like 20 kilos. And then as the months and the years went by and more events unfolded, that ball just got heavier for me. And I was genuinely struggling to be myself. And I don't think I've been vocal about this to you as well. Like, I lost myself in that process of supporting the other person. And I only realized that after we separated. And for me, it was like a point of recognizing and looking at myself in the mirror and thinking, who even is Pressure? I don't even know who I am anymore. Like, all the events I had unfolded and constantly pouring into the other person's cup, you start to lose yourself, because if you can't pour into your own cup, who are you? You lose your identity, right? On the face of it, I looked fine to external people. But there were moments where I remember my parents even saying to me, like, are you okay? Like, I would sit there. Normally I'm a jolly person. Like, people tend to gravitate towards me when I'm in a crowd or whatever. But when I was hanging around people that I knew and I was comfortable around, there were moments where I was just quiet. That wasn't normal for me.
You're a life coach. I'm not a trained therapist. But you hear two sides of the story.
Yeah.
When a couple are working through a challenge, go to therapy, you can work through this, or leave it, start fresh. There's some things you can't move past.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know which is right or wrong, but I hear them both. Why do you think some people can't move past it?
Yeah.
Why could you not move past it? And what do you actually think is the right solution for people?
So why couldn't I move past like leaving the person, or?
Why couldn't you unclip that shackle?
Yeah, that's a good question actually, because I felt, especially coming from an Asian background, there was so much pressure around reputation. And I think for me, it was, I didn't want to let my parents down. I didn't want to let my family down. But also, like I said, like, I was with this person for so long. She's the only person I knew for this amount of time, right? When you get used to someone, it's hard to see yourself with someone else. You're comfortable around that person. You could be yourself, right? And I think because we had such a big history behind us, it was like, I can't walk away from this. I have to continue trying to make this work. But more importantly, it was the pressure of not letting my parents down and the reputation being ruined as well, because out of my siblings, my cousins, I'm the baby of the family, all right? And no one else had ever been through what I was potentially going to go through. So it was always hard for me to say, no, let's just call it quits now. Let's just move on. So it was the pressure of everyone else that was kind of holding me back, but also the history I had with that person that I couldn't let go of, because I knew once I let go of her, I would be lonely after that. And that is exactly what I felt.
So there was fear,
Yeah.
fear of the unknown, fear of being lonely. they're big demons to confront,
Yeah.
right? Especially after having such a long relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure there's lots of people
Yeah.
who are in similar places, both men and women. What was the turning point that you said, I've got to face this loneliness?
Yeah.
And how can other people who might be in a similar situation also find the bravery to do what you did?
Yeah. So I think for me, it was being told a few things from my ex-partner. One of the things was me not feeling like I was loved by them. And I think that was the turning point for me. So like I said, 14th of February 2018 was the day where I hit rock bottom, and it was like, I can't keep doing this same old cycle. Like, I'm losing myself in this process. I mean, I wasn't losing myself, I only lost myself in that process. So for me, that was the day and the turning point where I was like, okay, enough is enough now. Like, I have to face the fear, the unknown, right? Like, it's the unknown that gives us fear. So I've got to face this because, and this is a coaching question that I ask my clients now because I mainly focus on people who are going through divorce stuff. And that is the way your life currently set up serving you in the best way possible? Now I look back and I'm like, my life wasn't serving me in the best way possible. I was coasting. I had a fixed mindset. Everything was very much black and white back then. Like, this is what you must do. And, you know, so once I gained that fear, strength, I guess, within myself to say, it's happening now and I'm going to face this and I want to move forward. That's probably the point where it was like a huge, huge uphill battle as well, because it's not a small feat, as you know.
But how did you gain that strength? Because I think sometimes it's, you feel inspired by meeting someone else.
Yeah.
Like, something has to happen where you think, I can't wake up another day like this.
No.
Like, you know, how did you gain the strength and how can others?
Yeah. So going back to like the struggles I had with mental health. So as soon as I separated, I remained in the property. My ex-wife had gone home to her parents and I chose to remain at the property. And I definitely faced my challenges being by myself because I was forced to face that man in the mirror and face the challenges and actually acknowledge the challenges that were going to come my way. I looked to escape alcohol, drugs. I was going out partying, just whatever I could do to kind of escape from reality in that moment. Because even though I wanted to face the fear and face the challenges, when you start to recognize that your world is crumbling in front of you, you don't see it then, but you don't see the light in that moment. But when everything is crumbling, you want to escape your reality. And a lot of people do that. And I remember hearing you talking about it with your dad as well, and talking about like people who get together at, at parks and benches and like, oh, I'm going through the same thing. Let's just go for a pint. Like, that's never really the answer. That's not going to turn your life around. So for me, there's 2 nights. I sunk a bottle of whiskey on one night. I didn't like the person at the end of it. I was really emotional. I then did it a week later. And I think for me, that second night was the turning point because I genuinely started to consider suicide. And the reason for this was there was feelings of unworthiness and like I wasn't enough or good enough for my family. And I felt like I was letting everyone down around me. But also when you lose someone who's been in your life for so long, and the loneliness I was feeling inside was just like, what else am I working towards right now? And the one thing that stopped me was seeing a picture of my nephew. I can't remember how old he was, but he was roughly around 1 year old or maybe a bit younger. And seeing that picture of him truly stopped me. And he doesn't know it to this day, but when he gets older, I will tell him because he's about 8 years old right now. He was my little angel. He was my saving grace. Seeing his picture stopped me from doing something stupid, right? Where potentially my parents would have been organizing a funeral, right? And that whole topic is morbid, right? Fully acknowledge that. So it got me thinking. So even after drinking this whole bottle of whiskey, I got to a point of wanting to, consider committing suicide. And seeing that picture of my nephew, and I was just like, okay, I'm not going to do this because I didn't want to be that negative story for him when he got older to say, you know, when my sister or brother-in-law, my parents were saying to him, like, your mama did this because he went through this situation. So the turning point was obviously recognizing that I didn't want to commit suicide. I wanted to actually be a success story. That's when I recognized I needed to reach out for help.
Suicide is such a big issue with young men.
Yeah.
And the idea that you thought about taking your life is really sad. I mean, I've known you and you're so positive, right? You're always smiling. We have amazing conversations together. But to think that you were at that space makes me feel sad. Your nephew was your guardian angel, like you said.
Yeah.
When you're working with people who are going through that stage where they're thinking of taking their life, is that something that you say to them? Find hope, find a reason to live for.
Yeah. We work on like 3 to 5 reasons that are below the surface level of what's going to be your motivator and keep you disciplined, but what's going to give you hope to move forward from your current reality and how you're feeling right now and how you're going to move forward. But also, I give my clients that reassurance I'm here to listen to them. No judgment.
So you gave yourself the title, the Indian life coach.
Yeah.
What inspired you to become that?
I'd wanted to do something in this field from the point of recognizing that I was going down a journey of personal growth and I was changing my mindset and I was changing who I was as a person, and I'm super proud of who I am today. When I started going through this process of the highs and lows, but more importantly, the growth, I started to recognize that people were coming to me for advice, general life advice or relationship advice. And that's when I started to feel like my opinion was always was started to be valued.
So this is before you had done your training?
Yeah, before
Right.
I did my training. So this is over the course of 2018 and 2019. I kind of started feeling the urge to do something in the field of helping other people. More so 2019. But what truly inspired me was back in 2022, and this is when me and my wife, who I'm married to now, we met in 2021, had a great dating period, and then we decided to get married, which is amazing. But in 2022, literally a month after my wedding, one of my good friends passed away. And that was also related to bad lifestyle choices. But also the deeper issue here was that he was fighting demons in his mind, right? That he couldn't overcome. And I always felt this urge of, and I would try my best to try and talk to him. I was really close with him. But sometimes he could be a closed book. Because again, for men, it's hard to show their emotions. Now, over the years, I learned to be more vocal. So I would vocalize to him how I was feeling going through my divorce and all that kind of stuff. So it was a true honor for him to actually be present at my wedding. He was like the big friendly giant, massive guy, 6'3", big guy. He picked me up on my shoulders as well during the reception party by himself. Yeah, no support. But then losing him a month later really highlighted to me that I have to take a leap of faith because life is too short. He was 35 years old, left a wife, a 9-month-old baby boy behind. And that's what truly hit me. I was 33 at the time. And when I looked at him, and I always saw him as an older brother, because he was always there to kind of support me and listen to me. But when the reality hit that he was dead, and recognizing everything he was leaving behind, especially that 9-month-old baby boy at the time, that hit me hard. And that was what pushed me what made me take the leap of faith into becoming a life coach, because I recognized that I had a bigger purpose in life, and it wasn't just doing web design. I was doing web design and development for 12 years of my life. And from that point, it was like, I've got to do something else. I have to serve a bigger purpose here. And that was to be of service to other people. And I saw life coaching as that route. Because for me, it was, if I can help people get from point A of depression, anxiety, and not having their shit together, how can I move them to point B, which is feeling true success, but more importantly, happiness and purpose. And I know we hear about it a lot these days. It's a buzzword, right? Like finding your purpose. And for me, it was finding that I could actually help other people out there. So the more people I can help and heal, I feel like every single time my purpose is met. I feel pure satisfaction and reward from that, knowing that I get my clients from point A to point B, but also, like on the weekend we've just had, expressing my story, but also trying to give that right advice to help people go in the right direction.
Do you think your friend would be proud of you?
Yeah, I've got him on my vision board. Yeah. Every day I go in my office and I look at the vision board, and it's a reminder for me that life is too short. Spend your time wisely. But also, if you want to make a big impact in this world, you have to become uncomfortable. You have to become comfortable with being uncomfortable.
What does that even mean? Be comfortable with being uncomfortable. So I think it's very easily said.
Yeah.
And it sounds great saying it. But what does that look like?
Yeah. It's pushing the boundaries in your reality, and understanding and recognizing that you are more than capable enough to achieve what you want, and not just wherever you got to right now. Many people coast through life. And this is where I kind of come in as well with my coaching skills, is to help them move from coasting phase to really start to succeed in areas that they want to flourish in. So for me, and I can use myself as an example, right? Because me being here today is me, pushing myself out my comfort zone. So what started off as becoming a life coach and jumping into the deep end, that was uncomfortable because I've run a business before, online business, but never left my job. I've always had a stable income, but to then leave my job, cool, this is the savings part. I have my wife supporting me as well. And she's been amazing through this whole period, my biggest fan. But to move from that comfort to then say, I'm going to really go full throttle with this job role now, like career path, right, of helping people, that was uncomfortable. I started recording videos for YouTube to kind of get my knowledge, wisdom out there to help a bigger audience. Sitting in front of the camera was uncomfortable, but I practiced. I kept on going with it because I recognized the importance of me being of service to other people. Fast forward a couple of years, I did my first public speaking event, just gone. That was uncomfortable. I was really nervous. I'm super grateful you showed up, and Nimesh as well, to help and support. That meant a lot to me because it was having that familiar face in the crowd that really helped me ease into that conversation and become more and more comfortable. So, and then again today, me doing podcast stuff as well. Like this was uncomfortable, but now I'm becoming more and more confident with it. But in order for something greater to come and more podcasts to come and me standing on bigger stages to talk to bigger crowds, to help them heal and move forward in their lives, I have to keep pushing myself through these scenarios and situations.
Do you think me and you were meant to meet?
Yeah.
Why?
We were meant to meet because of our background, the stories, but the bigger purpose here is being a voice for men. And this is where we both align, right? Men's mental health, speaking up, speaking out about what men go through.
Why are you so passionate about helping men?
Yeah, I'm passionate because of everything I've been through and recognizing that when I was going through my situation of post-separation, I recognized the hit that my mental health took. But also, I knew the value of having my little tribe around me. So I had 3 cousins, amazing, and a really good close friend of mine. And because of them 4 people, they helped and guided me into becoming the person I am today. And also, if I didn't get therapy and reach out for actual professional help and support, I probably wouldn't be here. We talked about suicide, looking at alcohol and drugs as an escape. I might have still carried on down that path if I didn't have the right support. So as an Asian man, I want to make sure that I'm getting myself out there to share my story and help other men open up and be vocal about what they're feeling deep down inside. That's what's important to me. But also losing my friend was the biggest thing.
Well, you're doing a great job, bro. I'm really proud of you. I think even in the short time that I've met you and I've known you, I've seen you grow.
Yeah.
I really have. I can see you flourishing, your energy, your confidence. I remember you telling me that you were feeling nervous about being on stage. And obviously I've got some experience of public speaking. I've done it for many years, and I tried to give you the advice I could, and you were great. Yeah. Why do you think it's so important for men to be vulnerable? Because people say it, and for years it's been seen as a weakness.
Yeah.
But what does being vulnerable mean? And as a life coach, what does it actually do to that person? How does it make them feel?
Yeah.
Because I know I've got my opinions on it. And I'll talk about my father, like when he was on the podcast, he said to me, he didn't realize that he had 20 years of pain still in him.
Wow.
Having the conversation helped him heal some of that. But actually even rewatching it was helping him heal every time. So share to me your thoughts about vulnerability, why it's important, and what that actually does on a deeper level to a man.
Like when it comes to vulnerability, I think men, going back to being boys, are programmed a very certain way. So I remember growing up, it was always like, if you talk about your emotions, you're seen as weak. And I won't use the word here, but it starts with P, right? You're seen as right? And I think that gets set in from such a young age. And as you grow up and go into adulthood, and if you don't see the same behavior mirrored by people around you, so if, your dad or other men or other role models are not showing that kind of behavior of, you can speak about something, you're not going to do it. You're going to keep hiding away, and you're going to keep masking it with something, right? Whether that's, going out and, like I said, alcohol stuff or whatever kind of form you can get to kind of like take and escape from reality, right? So I think there's this huge growth period that men should all kind of go through, because when you can actually be vulnerable to the right people, and again, you have to have the right people that you can speak to, because you don't want to speak to the wrong person who's going to give you wrong advice. But when you speak to the right people and you can be truly vulnerable with them, that is truly when the magic happens. Because like you said with your dad, like he's had 20 years of pain. And once he was able to talk about it, it was probably a cathartic experience for him. And I find that every time I have a deep conversation with someone is talking about the pain or things that I've gone through, or even the challenges I face at the moment, I always find it like a release. I'm releasing this negative energy that's been festering inside of me and releasing that out of my body, but then shifting my focus to something positive.
Is it good for men to face challenges?
Yeah.
Why?
I think it's good for men because of growth. Like,
explain how that works.
Yeah. So I think when men face challenges, they can get to the next levels in their life. So I look back at my life and I look at before separation, 2018 and all the years before that. Yes, I was progressing in certain areas, but not in mindset really. I stayed very stagnant. I was the same person year in, year out, coasting. And, as far as it got with like, oh, well, I'll work my way up in my company, the company I work for. I'll become like a, senior developer, whatever. That was to me just seen as like, that's the next thing, but am I really fulfilling my purpose now? So in order for me to grow and get out of my comfort zone, I had to be put through challenges in order for me to get to the next levels in my life. So growth to me looks like someone who is going to work to the next stages, but also people who can open up, especially men, right? For someone to sit there and be vocal, that takes true growth and strength about what they're dealing with deep down inside. But more importantly, how do they move forward? We don't want you to remain here. And this is what I do with my clients. I don't want you to remain in this spot. I hear you. I recognize the pain and the struggles you're dealing with. Now let's try to figure out some solutions. What's the small steps that you can take today, tomorrow, the day after that, to start changing your reality to something that is going to be serving you in a better way?
One of the biggest challenges, I think, with men's mental health is actually getting the man to take that first step.
Yeah.
The actual journey of finding yourself again, of healing and growing, I think is actually really rewarding. once a man sees the benefits and how his family and friends start to recognize his changes, because it feels good. It gives you an emotional boost.
Yeah.
What do you do for clients who have come to you, but you know they're hesitant?
Yeah.
They don't quite believe in it. They don't want to do it. How do you, I don't want to say convince,
Yeah.
but how do you reassure them that they're safe with you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a very calm person when I'm on a call with someone. I'm always there to listen. And I think that's the huge part of this, is asking them the right questions when I'm on that first call with them and understanding where they are in their current life. And I also like to share my story with them because it gives me a chance. So I share like what I used to do before becoming a life coach. I used to be a web designer and developer for 12 years. I share that. But I more importantly share the story of why I became a life coach and the challenges I had to face. Once I start talking about the challenges that I faced, is usually when these men open up about the challenges that they're facing. And when I can draw that out of them, I start to understand more and more about them, their personality, their upbringing, but also where they are now, and also understanding the future they're trying to get to. So I try get a clearer picture of where they are right now. But the more important thing is understanding their vision. And I think that's the huge thing that we miss.
What is vision?
Understanding where you want to get to. What is your true calling, your purpose in life? Like what do you truly want to achieve, right? And I know this all too well because I've been that person, and I know people around me who still do the same, like every year coasting. Now, here's an example that I give to clients, and this is something I do myself, but also do with my wife, and I get all of my clients to do. So comes to the end of the year, I do a journaling exercise, and that is taking stock of everything that's happened throughout that year. So for example, last year, I wrote down all the challenges experienced, all the wins, all the things I ticked off from my goals from the year before, making sure I did all of that in 2024. I had a list of things that weren't achieved, but then moving forward, planning the year ahead. And when you can truly start to plan the year ahead is when you can have more direction, right? You don't need to remain in that same spot. But also acknowledging if there's things that you haven't achieved, you can just move over. It might just not have been the right time for you to achieve them certain goals. So for a task that's so simple, it is so powerful. So I do this for myself. And like I said, get all of my clients to do it. And I do this with my wife as well, as a couples thing, because we both want to know the year ahead and exactly what we both want to achieve individually and together. What we want for our daughter. Like, I need to know these things. I don't want to just coast through it and just take it as it comes. I like to be prepared. When you're prepared, you're more than likely to achieve these things, and by taking small steps.
As a man is working towards his purpose, not everything's going to go exactly how he wants.
Yeah.
I try to make sense of that by believing that wasn't my time. I wasn't meant to do that. The universe didn't want that to happen. Is that the right way to think about that situation? Because being derailed or feeling like you're not achieving something can really halt this sense of purpose and ambition and growth.
Yeah, I agree. Like when you are not achieving certain things that you'd like to achieve, it definitely feels disheartening. I still, even though I'm a life coach, I don't always have it together. I'm human at the end of the day. I have my highs and lows. Now, I made a post about this recently online. 2025, even though I mapped out the whole year and recognizing what I want to achieve, it's been a really rocky start. More negatives have happened than the positives. It truly has. Even just coming here today, like I said, I've got a tooth problem. I had a nosebleed last night. I almost didn't make it today. But again, I had to remind myself why I'm doing this. And it's to be a voice and to get my story out there to help other people. But when you don't achieve things, it's recognizing as well that, like you said, it might just not be the right time. Because there's things I've wanted before in the past. Like 2020, I wanted a house. I didn't end up buying another house. It was okay. It took me time to sit back and reflect on that and meditate. I do a lot of meditation. I had to sit back and meditate on this and journal. I'm like, okay, it's okay that I haven't got the house this year. It just wasn't the right time. Lo and behold, A few months later, I get my house, which I've made into a lovely home with my beautiful wife, who I've gotten married to. I met them, but these two things were ticked off my vision board on the same weekend. So even though I was looking for a partner, and even though I was looking for a house, in the year that I thought they would happen, they didn't. But I had to make peace with the fact that, and I guess this is for the audience as well who are listening in, is you got to recognize that in order for something greater to come, things in your life right now have to be removed. And I guess you kind of got to see it as the universe and God doing a purge. And this is what I've been saying about the start of 2025. It's not just me, my clients, and other people around me have been facing some true challenges, especially when you think that, okay, I've got it all mapped out and this is how I see the year going. And when it doesn't happen that way, you're disheartened. But there's a simple change in perspective and recognizing that when you look at it as the universe is doing a purge for all the negative stuff to come and go out of my life now, but then shifting your mindset from that negative to positive, and that's where the growth happens, right? It's the growth mindset. So even all these negative things have been going on in my life, I'm more focused in on the positives. And every single day in the morning and before bed, I talk about what I'm grateful for. So I say it in my mind, and I always say to God and the universe, I'm so grateful for where I am today, but I'm also grateful for the challenges I've faced in the past, because I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't experience all of them, the positive and the negative. And then focus on the present. So I'm so grateful for today. I'm grateful for the roof over my head, grateful for my wife, the support she gives me and the love. I'm grateful for my child. She's a healthy baby. But then I also say I'm grateful for the future. I'm grateful for the challenges that are coming my way, because I know in each of these challenges and all the negative stuff that happens, there's an opportunity to grow. There's a lesson being learnt. And when you feel like you're failing, it's not a failure, it's an experiment. And when you look at it like that, and that simple shift in perspective of it's an experiment now, I may feel like I failed here, but it means I won't try this method again. I can go to plan B, plan C, and keep on moving forward. And that's the thing when it comes to a growth mindset. It's so important to not get derailed and remain and then end up in a rut and just staying stagnant. It's how can you keep pushing forward?
So you believe in manifestation, right?
Yeah.
So every morning I read out a day in my dream life. So I asked my mate ChatGPT to help me create my dream day. I inputted the things that I do, which it knows very well. And it created a dream day for me. And I read that to myself. Am I crazy?
No, not at all. This can seem like woo-woo to a lot of people. But what you're effectively saying there is you have a mission statement.
And what does that do? What does that do to my mind?
Yeah. Your mind starts working in different ways. So like we talk about manifestation and like it's simple things, right? Like it's simple of if you're going to be negative, you're going to trap more negativity into your life. But if you're going to shift yourself to a positive mindset, even though your current environment or your current circumstances may feel negative, once you start reading out what you said there, like your mission statement, right? Of this is what my dream day looks like, my dream life looks like, your brain starts working in different ways. And I'm a huge believer in this. And also the environment you surround yourself with. Who are the friends that you keep around? What about your family, right? Are they holding you back from achieving true greatness or where you're trying to get to? Once you can establish your environment, and even if it is toxic, there are tools like what you just said there, and journaling and meditating. Time for reflection really helps on how you can rewire your thoughts from something negative to positive. So additional to the mission statement with what you're doing, which is amazing and you're not crazy for doing it, there's something else I share with clients as well, and it's called affirmations. You must have heard of them.
Yeah.
And a simple one as well is I am enough and I am worthy. 25 times in the morning, 25 times just before bed. And the reason I say that is because even though it may seem excessive, the amount of negative thoughts that your brain may go through during the day is way more than them numbers. So I'm asking, and I'm doing this myself, I'm telling myself, my brain and my heart and my subconscious 50 times a day that I am enough and I am worthy of everything I have in my life and everything that is coming towards me, right?
when a lot of people think about manifestation, right, they liken it to, if you're thinking of a Range Rover, you might see Range Rovers everywhere. All of a sudden, you notice these things. I think that's too simplistic
Yeah.
in my mind.
Yeah.
I see, like you said, energy is a real thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard this podcast. It's called The Telepathy Tapes. It's phenomenal. It's about children who are autistic, who can't speak, but experiments have proven that they can communicate via telepathy to their parents and other people and to each other over great distances. And I've always believed in energy and thoughts being a real thing, right? So whenever you think something, you're actually sending out like a beam.
Yeah.
And so when you are feeling something, you're also sending out an energy, and it's a magnetism, right? And it's not just confined to a small radius. It can actually travel great distances. And I also think, like, even content, when you're putting out a message and you're saying something, that is radiating something to somebody,
Yeah.
right? Because somebody may see that and it may hit them in a positive way, and they may then connect with you. And so for me, manifestation is releasing an energy of what you believe in to the world in different forms. And which is why I love content and this idea that you can actually create something, and once it's out, your message is being repeated over and over, shared. So your manifestation and your magnetism is being amplified
Yeah.
globally, right? So when you think of that and what you can then attract in your life,
Yeah.
I'm like, why would everybody not do this?
Yeah. It's a no-brainer, right?
Isn't it? But do it in an authentic way that you believe is aligned to you.
Yeah.
Am I thinking the right way?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally thinking the right way. And I think a huge part of this as well is like when you put the intention out there in the universe and you put out good energy, and I'm a firm believer in karma. So if I'm putting out good energy and treating people around me with respect, who treat me with respect, I know that's going to come back to me tenfold. Right. And I love the way you kind of just mentioned there about like content and putting content out there. It gets amplified, right? So your message is constantly being shared. So many people are viewing it. And that in itself is amazing. And yeah, it's a no-brainer. Like, why are more people not doing this? Now,
Why are they not doing it? Why do you think they're not doing it?
I think people are, again, comfortable in their lives. So it's like what I've done up until now has worked, and I'm comfortable being here because I was that cynical person before. When my cousins who stepped up and showed me a new way in 2018 of thinking and growing, and I know you talked about with your dad as well, like the Think and Grow Rich book.
Yeah.
When you start shifting that mindset and open yourself up to like the law of attraction and manifesting, so many magical things can happen because it's a mindset shift. And like you said, you put out the energy, your brain starts working different ways. You will attract bigger and better things into your life. Not to say you won't experience challenges, but you will attract bigger things. I'd love to share a story with you actually.
Of course.
And that is 2 weeks before I secured the house that I live in now, the lovely home I live in now, and my wife that I'm married to, I meditated for 2 weeks, and each go was about an hour a day. I built that up, right?
Wow.
I started off with a couple of minutes
Yeah.
over the course since I think I started meditating in 2018. So this was 2021, right? It took me a few years to get to this point. I used to meditate for 2 weeks, solidly for an hour. And it was off the back of reading a book by Dr. Joe Dispenza called Becoming Supernatural. And he talks about how your brain works and energy and all the different like molecules or whatever that's going through your body, right? And I used to visualize me living like you read your daily life out, dream life out. I used to visualize myself living out my dream life. So one thing I always said was I wanted a lovely house that I could make into a home. That was super important to me. 3-bedroom, detached, and I wanted a big garage because the last property I didn't have a garage. And I wanted an absolutely loving partner who was on the same mindset, same vibe and synergy as me. Someone who was looking for growth within themselves, but also together. and for someone who is truly happy by themselves, because I knew in that point in my life, I'd reached a point of being happy by myself, and I wanted to meet a partner where we could both share our happiness together. So I did this visualization process and meditation for 2 weeks, and no word of a lie, one weekend, Saturday, I went to see the house again with my dad, and it was a show home actually. So I went to see the weekend before with my mum, liked the style of it. My mum even asked the sales rep, is the show home for sale? She said, no, it's not. We walked away and my mum was like, oh, that house felt so homely, like I could see you living in it. And I said the same thing. I was like, I can actually see myself living in this house. But if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. I'm gonna try and manifest it. And a week later, I go back to see with my dad. Looked around the house, went into the sales office, and the first thing my dad asked was, what's going to happen to this space here, which is the sales office? And they said, this is going to be the garage for that house, which is the show home. And they said, actually, Mr. Mystery, you're in luck because the show home just came on sale this morning.
Wow.
Right? So I was like, I had chills. I'm getting chills just thinking about it now. It was a no-brainer for me to not snap her hand off and say, actually, I want this house. So I gave her all the details. I went away, got my mortgage in principle. Within a couple of hours, I had secured the house.
Wow.
Next day, I was on dating apps. I was still trying to find Mrs. Right. And again, I took a different approach. So I was not being generic. I was very specific on what I wanted and putting out the right energy in there, in my bio. And one of the biggest things for me was like making sure I attract someone who is actually into personal growth. I didn't just want some random person coming into my life who I would have to try and uplift and bring them up to speed to where I felt I was in that time frame. And that's when I came across my wife. We swiped right. She initiated the conversation. And literally a week later, like, we started talking. And I genuinely knew from the point of swiping right, I was like, she's going to be my wife. And lo and behold, literally less than a year later, we ended up getting married. So in one weekend, I got the property I wanted, which we've both made into a lovely home, a loving home, my safe space. I can be vulnerable there. And that's the environment I've created and manifested into my life because I put my energy in the right area.
And through that marriage, you've got your beautiful daughter.
Yeah.
Tell me about being a dad who's a life coach and how that affects you and fatherhood.
I think for me, it's been challenging because, as you know, being an entrepreneur and business owner, the first few years are never easy, right? You have months where you have great income and then other months where it's not much. So I know for me, I definitely felt pressure around that, but that's the financial side of things. And I'm in a much better place now over the last few months. Business has been really good. But more importantly, the pressures I felt is breaking generational trauma and cycles. That's what's been the pressure where I've been feeling. And I'm doing everything I can to make sure that I am the best dad, especially for my little baby girl. I'm going to be the first man that she loves. I'm going to be a role model. And she's going to look up to me. I mean, she already looks up to me. And she's going to see me as a guidance of how a man should treat a woman. So for me, it's super important for how I treat her mother and how I talk to her. There are days where I do get frustrated and I've got to walk away because I can feel myself getting either triggered or something. I don't get irritated. I try not to get irritated in the moment, but I always come back with love and I will have a conversation with my wife. This is what's happened. This is what may have triggered me. Like, I'd really appreciate if we can try and figure out a solution on how we can avoid this in the future or move forward, right? That may seem a bit robotic right now, but that's kind of the approach that me and my wife both take with each other. But more importantly, how I am talking and the tone of voice I use around my little one is so important because, again, babies feel energy. There's been times where I've been upset and I've been crying in front of her and she starts crying. She's only just turned 9 months old. Babies are clever, right? They pick up on energy. She's used to seeing that happy dad all the time, the one who walks into the room, who's always like, hi, gorgeous. How are you? Do you have a good day? So I'm very calm and there's always good positive energy. And that's how I like to be all the time. But I do want her being exposed to times when mommy and daddy are upset. But I never talk to my wife in a disrespectful way because I always want her to recognize as she gets older, her partner, whoever she ends up with, should always treat her with love and respect first. You can end up in a lot of toxic cycles with the people who have not healed. And I don't want to bring my daughter up with trauma or her having to unpack stuff when she gets older. I see that responsibility on me and my wife to break them generational cycles or trauma or things that we've had to unpack. We have had to work through that and heal. And it's a continuation. It never ends. Personal growth is a forever process.
I think I could talk to you for at least a couple more hours. There's so much more I'd want to actually ask you. But as this is a podcast, it can't be a 6-hour conversation. But I think I've got to know you even deeper, the stuff I didn't know about you before. And I think you're not just a role model for your daughter, but the way you described how a family should come together, handle conflict and be role models for their children. I see you as a role model for all men. I think that's a beautiful way that you handle it, because a lot of men aren't as enlightened or don't handle their relationships, especially with their partner, as well as you do, man. So,
Thank you.
So well done, man. As we wrap up this conversation, and you may have actually just described what I want to ask you now, but how does Pashwal want to be remembered?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, this has been part of the journey for me, right? And understanding like why I'm doing what I'm doing now. And I guess for me, the legacy I want to leave behind is being someone who truly helped make a positive impact and someone who healed the world, but also being an amazing husband, an amazing father to my daughter and any future kids that me and my wife have. I think that's super important for me. Like, even though I'm a business person and I want to make sure that I'm following my life's purpose, I still want to be an amazing dad and an amazing husband at home. Like, what I've found in my wife and what we now have in my child is something I have always dreamed of and I truly manifested into my life. So it ultimately comes down to continuing to follow my purpose and leave that legacy behind of being someone who truly helped heal the world.
Well, bro, listen, man, you're already well on your way to healing the world. You're a real inspiration. I love that we have an hourly chat every week where we just talk about life. For me, that's really important. And I think we've built a really strong bond. And I'm excited to be working with you in the future within the Dad Project as well. So thank you so much, bro. Thank you for taking the time and for sharing your stories and for sharing so much valuable information. Thank you, bro.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.